top story. What exactly do those six world powers want to see from Iran? Well, back in February, they went on record with a list of requirements that would be met with the easing of sanctions. Iran should stop enriching uranium to 20%. That's the level at which experts say it's possible to create weapons-grade material. Iran should ship out some of its stockpiles of nuclear material and close down its underground enrichment facility. Joining me live now from Stanford, California, is Arash Aramesh, who's a national security analyst and also at Stanford Law School. Thank you so much for being on the show again this evening. Has there been, do you think, a change in the Iranian, or for that matter, the U.S. stance? Because the Iranian president is still saying that Iran has a right to pursue a peaceful nuclear program. And John Kerry has just been speaking to a U.S. network saying that Iran has to open up various plants for inspection. So what has actually changed that would make us optimistic a deal can be reached?
Well, the two men actually met after 33 years of no contact. At that level, high-level contact between U.S. and Iran, the two men, the Iranian Minister of Foreign Affairs and the American Secretary of State actually met. And that's a big deal. But again, it's not the end of the road. The world has been very concerned and still is concerned about Iran's nuclear program. Yes, Iran has the right to enrich uranium. Yes, Iran has the right for a peaceful civilian nuclear program, but because of its track record, Iran has an obligation to make sure that it addresses the global community and the international community's concerns, and that is why, again, I mentioned cooperation, verification, and inspection. These are elements that the West and the international community, the P5+1, is after in these talks.
Okay, what do you think is the main stumbling block for an agreement?
The main stumbling block is the matter of enrichment, uranium enrichment, and also the issue of allowing in inspectors to visit sites, actual physical sites, and interviewing Iranian nuclear scientists. Iran has always insisted that it has the right to enrich uranium to whatever degree short of weapons-grade uranium on its own soil without having to ship off its nuclear stockpile to any other country. Yes, they reached a deal in 2011 with the Turks and the Brazilians, but that deal was very short-lived. Again, Iran wants to enrich on its soil. That is not going to be acceptable to the West. On the other hand, the West wants to have access to verify that the Iranian nuclear program, as the Iranians claim it to be, is actually peaceful. So having access to the sites by the IAEA is going to be very, very important. It's not quite. I'm not quite sure, and I'm very optimistic. I haven't been this optimistic in months, maybe in years, but I really hope that the Iranians come forward and actually make some concessions and give something to the West. So these backbreaking sanctions that have brought the Iranians finally back to the negotiating table could be lifted.
As long as Israel, though, is mistrustful of Iran, and the Israeli Prime Minister has already said the Iranians are just time wasting, not serious about talks, can a deal, do you think, be made between Iran and the Western powers?
Israel has every right to be concerned as much as the rest of the international community is concerned about Iran's nuclear activities. The good thing is, post-President Ahmadinejad, that sort of anti-Israeli, that sort of insane rhetoric has stopped coming from Tehran. Mr. Rouhani, even while he is not a Western liberal Democrat, he refrains from using inflammatory terms against Israel or directly challenging Israel in that sense. So again, can Israel's concerns be addressed? I believe that with a very strong regime of inspections and verification, Israel's concerns could be met. But we also have to understand that while the Iranians don't have the best track record of nuclear nuclear track record, they also have some rights. And in this game of diplomacy, we got to give something and get something in return. We have to make sure that their program is peaceful, but in return, something has to be given, because Rouhani has to placate some of those hardliners at home who have been very adamant about not compromising, not making any concessions, and now they're going to say, hey, you made concessions, and guess what? The West didn't give you anything in return.
Very interesting one to watch. Arash Aramesh from Stanford Law School, thank you so much again for joining us.